Shirat Shirim, what's your request?
My request? My request is that you ask somebody else for their request. Look, my brothers and sisters are coming over for dinner in 1 hour, and my stove is broken.
Oh, I have the perfect song for you. It's called Hinei Matov, and it's all about brothers and sisters sitting down together.
Oh, no! The pipes are broken. I have no water.
You could always go to the well, like they do in another wonderful song, Ush'avtem Mayim.
The what? Did you say the well? Go down to the well. I'm on the 30th floor of an apartment building. I have no well. Get real, will you?
Roll 'em!
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. שפתם מים בששון ממעייני הישועה, שפתם מים בששון ממעייני הישועה. מים 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 מים, מים בששון, מים 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 מים, מים בששון. היי 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 היי, מים 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 מים, מים בששון, מים 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 מים, מים בששון. שפתם מים בששון ממעייני הישועה, שפתם מים בששון ממעייני הישועה.
ועכשיו תופענה הרגליים. The legs. ועכשיו יופיע הגוף. The body. הידיים. The hands. והראש. הראש. The head.
We're back. Let's go on to our next request. It's from... Oh, Kippy Ben Kippad. Shalom. Shalom, Kippy. It's nice to meet you. You know, you look awfully familiar. So do you. We've probably seen each other around. Ha! Ha! Well, what's your request for us today? I did a little video that I'd like you to play. I'm very proud of it. It's called Yesh li shtei yadayim. I have 2 hands.
Hold it! You don't only have 2 hands.
What?
You have 2 heads!
What? Moshe, what are you talking about?
You cannot do that.
What?
Taking a request from yourself.
I can do anything I want. This is my show. Oh,
Oh, God. Jewish Sesame Street. Wow. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's not even... It's unfortunate. I set it up incorrectly. Apparently it was... I had it queued up to a different... a way more Jewy section. But apparently it was still going, and when I went off of that scene in OBS, I thought it would stop playing, and apparently it didn't. So it went off where it was, but that's okay. Yes, that's Jewish Sesame Street from the I think from the 90s. And there's some pretty funny shit in it, but it looks like what they did, and I'm wondering if other countries do this or if it just Israel specifically. But it looks like what they did was they got American Sesame Street and dubbed over about half of the show, and then they plugged in that low rent public access looking shit. I just realized my Spectrum thing isn't working. Man, I am not off to a good start this morning. Oh, good Lord. How you guys doing this morning? Let me get this turned on here. Alright, that's turned on finally. Okay, good. It's actually a lot of steps to make this work because I refuse to pay money for it. If all I did was pay a little bit of money, it's actually not just a little bit of money. It's less about the money, and it's more about the software, the way they've decided that you pay for it. It's obnoxious to me. If you have, just for those of you who write software in the audience, if you're planning on selling software, there's two ways to really piss people off. There's three ways. There's one, which is to have it subscription based, which almost everything's going to. I predicted this years ago. As soon as I started to realize kind of where the internet was going, I told people, look, even though it's funny to think of your personal computer as being a terminal, thinking of that as kind of being old, because that's how computers were. If you went to the library, or if you went to a school or a college, and you went to a computer that was in the library, it wasn't an actual computer. It was what was called a terminal. It was a monochrome monitor and a keyboard, and that was it. And that was hooked up to some giant fucking computer in the back room somewhere that every quote-unquote computer in the entire library and maybe the entire building or beyond was connected to. So everyone that was trying to use the computer, quote-unquote, was using just a giant shared monster machine in the back room. And so it was really slow. It would get slower the more people that used it, because everyone was just sharing the same thing, and you were just logged into it. So it was kind of like, well, I think it was just a Unix machine or something like that. This is before my time. I'm just familiar with it a little bit because I did go to like a school that had some ghetto ass equipment at one point in time. So we had to. I lived early enough to be on the tail end of some of the like old schools with no funding using some of this shit. So I realized that as soon as the internet started going in the direction that it was going, and this is before they were talking about cloud computing or anything like that. Just as soon as I saw that, like, oh, the speed's increasing, I was like, they're going to go back to this same exact format where you have a terminal. You have a terminal, and you're going to be plugged into some massive machine that everyone's sharing. And one of the reasons that they're going to want to do this, it's countless, but one, you won't have software piracy, because you won't be able to do software piracy because it'll be stored on, you won't have any local storage. And because you won't have any local storage, they'll manage all of your data. And like I said, I was saying this like in the late 90s, before Y2K. And people thought I was crazy. They're like, no, they're never going to do that. That's old. That's what they used to do. And I'm like, no, I know that they used to do that, but they'll do it again. They'll do it again because there's just way too many advantages. Like, it doesn't matter how many disadvantages there are for you. I don't think you understand how the world works if you think that matters. There's so many advantages to the people with money that there's no reason in a million years that they wouldn't do this. And now that you've got the streaming services for games, that is above and beyond what I thought. I thought that the only times you wouldn't be able to, or that you would rather have the local hardware instead of the remote hardware is when it was necessary. Like, you wouldn't have the processing power or the bandwidth, which is still kind of the case. Like, I don't know how awesome these streaming services for gaming are, I would imagine you'd probably need a pretty consistently, like a really fast, low latency connection for that to work. I've never actually used one of these streaming gaming services, though. Anyway, what was I talking about before that? I just woke up. How you guys doing this morning here? Oh yeah, I was talking about the software. So, if you make it subscription based, that's annoying. It's annoying as fuck. Although that's what everything's going to be. That's what everything's going to be. And the reason it's annoying as fuck is like in the case of like Adobe software. They're like the biggest assholes about this, right? You used to be able to just buy Adobe Suite for, I don't know how much it was, but you could get used copies on eBay, right? Of the discs, and you'd have the code and everything. After Effects, I mean, well, Adobe Premiere is over 20 years old, and it hasn't fundamentally changed, and you'd be hard-pressed to find updates that you absolutely need within like 5, sometimes longer years of time. And so, even though they are adding stupid shit and things that you might want or whatever, there are times where up to, or actually I would say even longer than that, longer than 5 years go by, that really you didn't need to update anything. And in fact, I would say it might even go as long as like 7 to 10 years if you're just a basic, you're just cutting stuff on a timeline, right? And for now, for those 5 to 10 years or whatever, they're charging you every month that you use it, and just for features that you're not going to be using. Excuse me. Still got this cough. So maybe it is the coof. It's not, but yeah, it's lingering. It never got bad. It's just lingering. It's I've been doing a lot of outdoorsy stuff. The other thing that pisses me off, and this is what this company does, is if you use a product key that's tied to hardware. This is what really pisses me off. And I get why they're doing that. It's because they want to stop you from just sharing your product key with a bunch of people, so they can't all install, your copy or whatever. But if you're any kind of technical person at all, and the software that I use is sort of targeted towards people like that, then you're going to be changing hardware like all the time. And if every time you change your hardware, the software stops working because the product key no longer matches whatever it's trying to compare against, like, oh, you changed the video card, so now the product key doesn't work, and it's like, bro, come on. And then you have to go and you have to email them and tell them, like, oh, my product key stopped working again, and they have to, and not only that, even though they're the ones doing this format, you have to, or you're only allowed to change it something like 4 or 5 times a year. So if you change the hardware in your computer more than 4 or 5 times a year, and sometimes I do it way more than that, you can't use the software that you paid for. It just doesn't work anymore, and you have to buy it again, or wait until the end of the year for it to refresh. I mean, it's such a stupid licensing thing, and so I use the demo version. Which is crippled somewhat severely, and I don't care. Fuck it. It does some annoying things. And it's way better. The non-demo version's way better, and I would much rather use it. And it would even, it would look way cooler using it. But yeah, sorry, I'm not gonna give them money, and then it just doesn't work one day because I changed my video card out, or my whatever hardware is just enough to trigger the stupid thing and make it flip out. So, but yeah, no, eventually everything will be centralized. Eventually, we're already getting there. as soon as they started using the word cloud, I was like, oh, Christ, like this is coming faster than I thought. Because I really didn't think that, because look, internet connections have been, not mine, but internet connections have been increasing in speed at a quicker pace than I had expected. And the ability for cloud computing has been increasing it, and that's the other thing too. Is I was thinking like, wow, well, if for example, for storage, like local storage, if everyone's using the same local storage or the same cloud storage, I mean, just that's so many terabytes. That's an insane amount of not just traffic going in between all of their individual computers and this storage device. But just all that, it's just every time you access it, like it's just it's an insane amount of data moving around, and I thought it would take much longer before we got to anything like that, like anything like the gaming, for example. I thought stream like a game would always have to be, or at least in my lifetime, would have to be played locally because you're always talking about you always need the cutting edge hardware, the cutting edge video card to operate this sort of a thing, and the amount of processing power necessary to do 60 frames per second or 120 or whatever it is. I don't know what these streaming services are capable of yet, but I mean, and they're not new. I mean, they've been around a few years, so I'd imagine they're at least decent. But to do that for everybody that's playing a game at any given moment, that's just like an astronomical amount of processing power. So anyway, since this is like now it's suddenly a tech show, in other tech news, a Bitcoin price, I guess, is, I haven't even looked at the price itself, but I'm assuming it's up because one of the stories I did see on Twitter this morning when I fired Twitter up is that Pornhub, having been deplatformed by MasterCard and Visa, are now accepting cryptocurrencies for payment to their premium services. And I haven't looked, but I would assume that has dramatically increased the value of cryptocurrencies. So I'm going to take a look. Let's take a look at how Bitcoin's doing today. It hasn't skyrocketed. It's getting really close to $20,000 again. Like really close. It's at 19,750 at this moment right now. So, I mean, let's do 24 hours. Let me take a look here. In the last 24 hours, well, I guess it's jumped up a little bit. So in the last 24 hours, it's gone from, I guess that's quite a bit. I mean, it's gone from, I don't know. It's not that much, but it is. There was a big jump on the announcement. So when Pornhub, I'm assuming that's what that jump is. It went from 19,400 to a peak of 19,800 thereabouts. So it increased in about $400, which isn't really too dramatic, but I would expect that to keep going. Because Pornhub, it's got to be. I mean, that's another thing, all right? That's another cloud, service, right? Think of how many people are streaming videos from Pornhub at any given moment. I mean, that's a huge amount of fucking bandwidth. It's a huge amount. The storage actually isn't that much if you think about it. Even though I'm sure they've got a ton of porn on there or whatever, but. It really isn't that. It's not like YouTube. YouTube, I don't even want to know how many terabytes of video they've got. Pornhub would be significantly less. It's more about the bandwidth with Pornhub, right? And they've been paying for that for years, right? So they must be making some money. I know there's a lot of people that think that they're just doing it to subvert us. No, I mean, I'm sure that's a happy side effect, but you're underestimating the people that put these products together. They always make stuff that makes money. Otherwise it just becomes a bottomless pit. So it's got to be funding itself through these. I don't know. I've never paid money for porno, so I don't know like how that all works. But I'm assuming they've got some kind of subscription something, right? And the amount of money that they have to be making to handle that kind of bandwidth, it has to be insane. And so you're going to have a ton of people who are, all these coomers that I guess have been paying for this, for the last however long Pornhub has been around, that are going to have to learn about crypto if they don't already know about it. And PayPal is now dabbling in Bitcoin. You can now get Bitcoin from PayPal, from what I understand. So that'll bridge the gap. That'll be an easy way for these people who wouldn't normally be able to, I think, use Bitcoin, because crypto's not the easiest thing. That's one of the drawbacks. It's one of the things holding it back. Is it's not just something that you're like, oh, it's not just like another currency. It's not as easy as using a lot of these money apps, right? And then when other companies, like third parties, they try to make it easy like that, they're usually insecure and they get hacked, and then everyone loses their Bitcoin or whatever. So PayPal is going to normify, I think, that crypto space, and then Pornhub is going to create a demand. So I don't know. I'm not very good at predicting markets, but I would say long term, if Pornhub is now accepting crypto, that's a good sign for the future of crypto in terms of it holding its value. Okay, let's take a look at chat. Crypto is pretty easy to use. I mean, it is, but it's not. Hello. Are we back? Are we back or are we not back? I think we might be back. I'm dropping frames like a mofo over here. My internet connection might be done. Oh wait, is it finally coming up? Nope. All right. And we're back, I think. Pretty sure we're back. Let me take a look here. All right, we are back. That's the ghetto internet I keep talking about. So anyway, what was I talking about again? With the Pornhub and the Bitcoin and all that stuff. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So anyway, we are back. And my internet is somewhat working, I think, now. Okay, good. Well, that's the problem. At least now I know what it was. I was using my backup internet connection instead of my throttled internet connection that works in the middle of the night and early morning. Oh, God. All right, so here we go. Let's look at chat here. Pornhub is gay. The vaccine will also be subscription-based. Yes. Yes. Yes, it will be. You know, I was watching increasingly what you're seeing because I think Trump is coming to terms with the fact, especially after yesterday's announcement that Mitch McConnell is officially recognizing Biden and telling senators not to dabble in, the alternative methods that the Trump team has been floating in terms of the alternate electors and all that sort of a thing, which to me honestly makes it sound as though it's exactly the pipe dream that I was saying it was. If you got Mitch McConnell telling senators not to vote for it because it's not as simple as just Mike Pence just decides. It does have to go to a vote, and no one's gonna. It doesn't sound like they're gonna have enough people to vote for it. If Mitch McConnell is telling senators not to vote for it, so I don't see a pathway for victory for Trump at this point. And so it looks like Trump is. I mean, anything's possible, but the probability at this point is pretty low. So it looks to me as though Trump's looking for something to call his legacy. And stunningly, it's Operation Warp Speed. And it kind of has to be. Because think about it. What else can it be? Isn't that fucked up? Like if you had been told in 2016 that Trump's legacy was going to be an mRNA vaccine that was distributed to every American. I mean, it's just mind-boggling that's going to be what Trump did for Americans. It's going to be Trump delivered a vaccine to Americans that we didn't even really need. I mean, for all I know, this cough is COVID, and I'm just, this is what happens when you're not fucking almost dead and you get it. It's just not a big deal. All right, let's take a look here. People's Republic of America incoming. Well, and that's something that they want. That's what they want. Trump, for all his faults, and there are many, and look, he wasn't equipped to. I was gonna say without Trump that's where we're headed, but honestly, with Trump, that's where we were headed. Because I don't think he was equipped mentally or fortitude way. I don't think he had the balls or the brains really to oppose it. Clearly, he didn't, because he's failed. Because I think, if you look at the internal emails from Hillary Clinton, where they wanted to funnel people to Donald Trump because they thought he would be what they call a Pied Piper candidate. They would purposely get people to in other words, that's why. Remember how much media coverage that Trump got in the run-up to the campaign? And everyone wants to make it sound like, oh, that was all because Trump's a media genius. And look, that might be a little part of it. But the other part of it is the establishment they really thought Hillary couldn't lose. They didn't, against Donald Trump, that is. They didn't think that with their coverage, their propaganda coverage about how he was a racist, he says, all the Mexicans are rapists and stuff, like they thought that they threw enough of these stories about Trump in there that normally in past elections would have been the end, right? And it wasn't so much that, Trump's a genius and he somehow he's bulletproof and the media can't touch him. It was way less that. And look, there's elements of that are true. But it was way less that, and it was way more the public themselves were becoming immune to this kind of rhetoric, where they were just done with hearing the media calling everybody a racist. And because when everyone's a racist, no one's a racist. And so a lot of these canned attacks that the media had been using for years and years and years, and election after election, that worked. didn't really work. And they also underestimated how much people hated Hillary Clinton. And I think they also underestimated how much it wouldn't matter that they weren't really covering the WikiLeaks stuff because people have internet access. And this is before they shut down, they put down the hammer on internet censorship, right? So, this is part of why they're doing it. So for the first election, really, maybe in history, you had not just the ability to share this kind of information easily among people without using the media as a go-between, but you also had people that were at least, I don't want to say tech savvy, but at least online enough to be able to see the information, because in past elections, thanks to smartphones and stuff like that, most people are on the internet a lot. And so to get this kind of information in front of them wasn't that difficult. In fact, it was really easy, which is why they've had to censor everybody. So I think people really overestimated Trump's capabilities. And look, there was fraud in 2016. I would hazard a guess that pretty much the exact same kind of fraud that we saw the same kind, not the same amplitude, but the same frequency, So I think you had the kind of fraud take place in 2016. It's just that they remember. I don't know if you. I remember because I was on election night. I was working election night, working the election in terms of reporting it and stuff like that. And I remember Broward County, which had always been the county that had all that fraud. That was I forget that lady's name, but that black lady that was in charge of the elections there. They were the last ones to report their results because they were trying to count, figure out how many votes they needed to turn it over to Hillary, and it ended up being so wildly out of step with some of the safeguards that Florida ended up having to implement thanks to the Bush-Gore thing that they couldn't make her cross the finish line, and that was just one of probably many states where they weren't prepared for the volume that they would have to do to make up for the fact that everyone fucking hated Hillary. So their fraud didn't work in 2016. And they weren't expecting a Trump presidency, certainly. But and Trump might not even have been expecting a Trump presidency, because I've heard, like I said the other day, I was talking about how I found it amazing that he let it slip. But Len Wood was he said this on stage, I think in Georgia, where he was saying that he was talking to a friend of the president, and you could tell that he realized what he had said right after he said it, and because he moved on, he moved quickly on after saying this, but he was saying oh yeah, well, Trump, he loves this country, because when he first ran, he didn't even want to be president. He was just running to improve his brand. But then when he went on tour and talked to people, he realized, no, he needed to be president. And then he realized, oh shit, I just basically spilled the beans that Trump didn't run to, he wasn't recruited by the military, like the Steve Pachetnik thing that was on Drudge, the day before election, saying that, the military has recruited Trump. This is the coup, the counter coup to stop the communists from taking, that whole thing that a lot of people fell for in 2016, because Drudge was promoting it, and you looked at the resume of Steve Pachetnik, and you're like, well, I mean, I know he's, maybe shady, but this is kind of crazy, and so maybe this is real. And it was all bullshit. Most likely all bullshit. And most likely it literally was just Trump, like a lot of people have said in the past. And I don't think they're wrong about. Trump was trying to improve his brand and then realized he could win. And so he went for it. But he was completely unprepared for the office. And I mean, that's why he basically hired whoever the RNC told him to hire. I mean, and then he replaced even the bad people he got rid of. He replaced with people who were exactly as bad, who performed equally as bad. I mean, with Christopher Wray, he might as well have fucking kept Comey in there, for fuck's sake. I mean, like, what did Christopher Wray do at all that had anything to do with Trump's agenda? Anything? And now we find out he and his wife actually financially benefited from some of these same deals that Hunter Biden is involved in. Yeah, good pick there. You know, that 4D chess Trump. I mean, so for fuck's sake, like, and then obviously Bill Barr, who couldn't even like hang in there the last few weeks, he had to ditch out, and his deputy, by the way, who's going to take over, is basically the same. It's not like Bill Barr is being replaced by like some guy who's going to, you know, swoop in and you know, like Q's going to swoop in and make all the arrests. No, the guy who takes over is his deputy, who is basically, you know, Bill Barr Jr. I forget his name off the top of my head. Yeah, he hired John Bolton, someone said. And then we got, let's see here. 4 more years of Russiagate and still no one will be arrested. So, yeah, I mean, there's not going to be 4 more years, but Trump's pretty much done. I don't see how. Maybe I'll be wrong. Look, maybe I'll be wrong. I don't see how, after Mitch McConnell explicitly saying that they're not going to vote for the dueling electors, you don't really have a pathway at that point. You know, like maybe I know there's still some legal challenges in the courts, and maybe one of them will go through, but like I said yesterday, your people are starting to sound like the Bernie bros that were saying like, oh no, this is how Bernie can still win. It's like, yeah, it's technically possible. You know, it's technically possible, but so is so many things that aren't going to happen. I mean, it's limitless how many things. You guys need to start bracing yourselves for what I believe is an inevitability in President Biden, because Trump doesn't have the balls, and maybe not even the ability, given how much has no control over any of his other agencies. Why would Trump have no control over the FBI, no control over the DOJ, no control over the CIA, no control over the NSA, but he has total control over the military? It just doesn't make any sense. And so if you think that somehow he's not going to have the ability, or he has essentially no ability to even govern at all over the last 4 years, and no ability to even address some of these normal things, like the censorship and things that are hurting him, not things that are hurting us, which there are many that he didn't address, but the things that are hurting him directly. He seems to have no ability to solve those problems. And these are problems that would not be hard to solve for a competent man. For the kind of man that has the support that he does, and the personality even that he does. Like, he'd be able to sell a lot of this stuff. If he had to go a little authoritarian, people would back him up. I mean, for fuck's sake, you got all these anti-vaxxer Q people like have no problem whatsoever with the fact that we got the quickest, most scary, possibly really bad vaccine in all time. A lot of them will even probably get it. Do you think he would have the balls if they could get it? I don't know. No matter who is elected, it accelerates towards chaos. It's awesome. Yeah, well, I think I almost don't even want to say no matter who gets elected at this point. I think it's just more, what will Trump do before Biden is sworn in? And that's good. It's good that faith in the system is at an all-time low. Trump did tweet out this morning something like 92% of Republicans believe the election was rigged. I don't know if that's true, but that's good if it is. I mean, if half the country fully believes. I would even say that that's even like a higher number than a higher percentage of people than the people who actually believed in Russia collusion. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure. And so you're going to have this situation now where it's going to be worse than it was the last 4 years in terms of the left hating Trump and thinking, oh, he's Putin's puppet. He's Putin's puppet. It's going to be much worse because the fact that it's almost like a big fuck you to the right. The fact that they ran Biden, it was almost just it seemed to me like they were just doing it to prove that they could. Like, look, we can literally run anyone we want. Like, even if it's Biden, and he'll win. And they did, and he did. And the left doesn't care. They really don't care. You could have run anybody. They don't care. I mean, I'm sure most of you have been in arguments or debates with people on the left, and it's stunning how much they have no idea what's going on. I mean, they feel very strongly about all of it, but they have no idea what's going on. And so you're going to have, I mean, there's some of them today, 4 years later, who probably still don't know who the vice president is. Try that. Find someone in your life who's a normie and ask who the vice president is. And it'll be, I guarantee you, a shocking amount of them won't even know. All right, let's take a look here. Riverbear17 gave a diamond, which I think is good. I will never vote again. Well, there you go. I mean, you can't, in the current system, you can't expect votes to matter. I think they made that abundantly clear. You know, one of the most black-pilling things for me about the voter fraud hearings wasn't so much the voter fraud, because these are all things, like I said, I'm very aware of these sorts of exploits because that's how my brain thinks. And the fact that there was they had all these weaknesses in the system, the amount of them was a little shocking. I was just like, holy God. Like, I mean, I expected there to be vulnerabilities because I've heard about this for years. And I've always thought these were a bad idea. Because if anything electronic can be hacked, but I didn't think that they would be designed to be hacked. I didn't think that it would be as blatantly bad as it is for so long, because a lot of these systems have been around for years, and so for them to be this bad for so long, I mean, it means that really fraud's been going on for at least 10 years, and that there's probably lots of people in office that were never elected. I would go back, and it's probably not even just limited to the Dominion machines. The black-pilling thing for me wasn't the vulnerabilities. It was, and this is probably why there's so many vulnerabilities, it was the obvious lack of intelligence on the part of the local legislators. And I don't just mean the low IQ black lady in Michigan, the one that later started threatening everybody with, the soldiers make them pay, like that fucking retarded rigor. But I'm talking about just all of them, the RNC people too, like pretty much everyone that was sitting there listening to this evidence with just a stupefied look on their face, knowing that they have no idea what they're even hearing. These people are just fucking retards. I mean, they're just fucking retards. And I mean, I already had a low opinion of state legislators, but they're fucking retards. Like fucking full-blown fucking retards. I remember watching, I was in New Mexico, and I was in a hotel around New Year's, a couple years back, and I turned on the hotel TV. It was late at night, and for some reason it was on like their cable access, or government access channel. I don't know who was in the room before me. Why'd they be watching that? But it was like C-SPAN, but like local stuff, right? So it was the local state legislators arguing a bill. And I remember watching it and just like jaw fucking on the floor at how fucking retarded these people were. Like, it was like watching middle school kids arguing about stupid shit. Like, it was that level of discourse. And I don't just mean like, oh, they were just using personal attacks. No, I mean like the intellect behind the personal attacks and the intellect behind even just the arguments. Like, I felt like I was watching Idiocracy. It was so bad. And I just assumed that was New Mexico. Because New Mexico's just, I mean, look, New Mexico doesn't exactly have the best education system. New Mexico ain't that new, okay? I don't know if you've seen Breaking Bad, but there's some times where it feels like that's a documentary. And I say that as someone who spent a lot of time in New Mexico. And I know there's cool people there too. Look, when I was there, I was a cool person there. So I know they exist. I'm just saying, you got to know, if you lived in the 505, you know that it's not, it's not a high IQ area. And so I just figured, oh, wow, New Mexico's just got some dumbass fucking state legislators. No, it's pretty much, it's just statewide. It's not just statewide, it's everywhere. It's kind of like how, I remember I worked in fast food for as my first jobs, one of my first jobs was fast food. And I remember thinking like, man, like I'm like fucking 15 years old and I'm ordering someone around who's like 35, and not because like I'm a dick, but because he needs to be ordered around, or like there's this other retard I'm working with, and just like, and thinking like, this is just so weird that I'm 15 and I'm more capable than 80% of the people who are like twice my age in this job. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? It's probably because this is a fast food job, and so if you're 30 and you're working a fast food job, you're not at the high end of the bell curve here. So, that's probably what's going on. It's not that people are this dumb. It's just by and large, it's just that you're in like an area where they're going to be dumb, and I thought that was the case. But then when I worked in TV, it was about the same kind of ratio, and it was about 80-20. Like 20% of the people at any given job, and the scary thing is I think this probably extends into ORs. This probably extends into like the medical field and life-saving areas, and it's probably worse in a lot of other places, right? But I mean, even when I was in Washington, working with big money contractors or powerful agencies, it was the same ratio, where 80% of the people in the room were 100% incompetent, and 20% of the people were the ones actually making shit happen. Everyone else was just dead weight. Now, they were higher IQ than maybe, well, not always, but than maybe the fast food people, but the job as the job would require, the gap, right? The competency gap would remain. So as the job would require more high IQ, yeah, the IQ of the dumb people would go up, but the gap was still the same. They were just equally as incompetent. Like the guy working at DOD was equally as incompetent as the guy working at KFC. Okay, like there's, it was amazing. It was always the same. It was always an 80% of the people in the room didn't know what the fuck they were doing. And so the black pill for me watching those hearings was seeing that the same thing applies in these I don't know why I'm shocked. I really don't know why because I should have known this. But it seemed to be about the same ratio, or if not higher, because you'd have like the one guy, like in the case of Michigan, you had the one guy who was conducting the meeting and that had the gavel. He seemed to know what was going on, but no one else did. In Georgia, like watching some of these good old boys, these old farmers or whatever. And look, maybe they're really cool guys, but this is why they shouldn't have these positions, because it's 2020. And if you have, if you're totally unable, excuse me, to understand basic technical principles, just basic shit that the witnesses oftentimes are, because they're not technical people, right? It's not like they're sitting there trying to explain things in binary. You know, they're trying to explain things in layman terms because the people that the witnesses themselves are not usually very technical people. And to watch it still just like not penetrate the layers of retard in these people's skull was amazing to me. And that's what we're dealing with. We are in idiocracy mode. It's here. It's here. And I think that same... In fact, I think that's why so many people... It's a double... There's two ways this applies. I think that's why so many people believed in Q. And I guess probably still do. Is one, they're retards themselves, and they want, there to be daddy God Emperor to save the day, because that's how children think, right? But also because maybe the smarter ones, they fear what that, like the 80-20 rule that I'm talking about, they fear the implications of that. Because there's so many things that came out of the Trump White House that looked like, wow, they're just fucking retards, right? And so, but it was so retarded that the only thing that would make you able to sleep at night some of this time was if there was 4D chess. Like, oh no, this can't possibly be as fucking retarded as this looks. There's no way this is as incompetent as it looks. There has to be a better explanation for it, because if there's not, holy shit. Holy shit. You know what I mean? Like that's what they're avoiding. That's the mental block. Because if you're kind of smart and you realize, wait a second, that wasn't 4D chess, that was just them being fucking retarded. Oh shit. We're fucked. And people don't want to think that. People don't want to think that. So the only other explanation is, because you got to avoid that, right? You got to avoid your brain going to that place. Because if you realize how fucked we are, there's some people that can't handle that. There are a lot of people who they cannot handle that. I mean, that's why even now, they're trusting the plan. Even now, they're trusting the plan. And you know what? Even if Joe Biden gets sworn in on the 20th, which I openly admit is not a certainty, although it's becoming one, they'll still trust the plan. They'll say that, like, oh no, you see, Biden needs to be in the Oval Office because Q bugged the Oval Office, and now we'll have the tapes, and it'll be something that retarded. And because of the 80-20 rule, that's the other funny thing. I've talked to a lot of people, especially more recently, who have said, Devin, I've never understood why you go so hard on Q. I didn't realize that it was really that big of a movement. And I was like, no, dude, you don't really understand. Like, Q people got elected this time around. Like, it's not as fringe as you think. Especially in my area. I mean, like when I lived in the city still before I came out here, I had Uber drivers tell me about Q. I mean, I had people I would just encounter in public randomly telling me about Q. Like at the bar, my Uber driver, and they're bringing it up. I'm not even bringing it up. Like, why would I bring that up? And that's when I realized, holy fuck. Like, this is a real thing. And even out here, middle of nowhere, my next door neighbor, my only neighbor really, believes in Q. What are the odds? What are the fucking odds of that? So it's the rule applies. You have the 80-20 rule in terms of the believers. So 80% of the people on the right are fucking incompetent retards. And so they believe in Q. Right? And there's the top 20%, the people who don't believe in it and know it's fucking retarded. And doesn't matter because we're having to do all the work because the 80% that doesn't fucking get it. Right? But I think that's just universal. I think it's 80-20 universal. 20% of the no matter what you're talking about, whether you walk into, like I said, an ER, or you walk into a mechanic's shop, or you walk into the State Department, it's going to be the same. It's going to be 20% of the people are going to be doing all the work, and the other 80% are just fucking riding the coattails. And because of that, you have the 80%, they're going to believe in the Q retardedness. And because of that, you're going to have the excuse for the Q retardedness. Because if people realized how fucking incompetent the Trump administration was, it would be very blackpilling. It'd be very blackpilling. If everything was exactly how it appeared, in terms of just Trump hiring these incompetent fucknuts, hiring the swamp to drain the swamp over and over again, and just not getting anything done, and just tweeting, law and order like a fucking asshole while the country burned, and just not ever actually doing anything, not getting the wall done, not having his underlings lie to him about troop numbers, like literal treason, and just getting away with it because he's that much of an incompetent fucking boomer. Fuck Trump. Seriously. I mean, he's full-on retarded fucking boomer, and no one wants to face that. No one wants to fucking face that. All right, let's take a look here. Yeah, they'll wait forever for the Gitmo bullshit. Yeah, they'll keep saying that 2024, trust the plan. Trump needs to get reelected so that he can, and he's gonna be old as fucking dick. Like he's gonna be. It's gonna be terrible because now instead of having to wait 4 more, like let's say if he got reelected, we'd have to wait 4 more years to like really get the party started because all these fucking magatards are gonna be held up by the gatekeeper that is Trump. They'll never go to the right of Trump. And Trump's not very right. Okay? Trump is literally a Democrat 20 years ago. That's how based, tranny-loving fucking Trump is. And so we'll never be able to go more to the right because all of his little followers, they're NPCs. They're the 80%. And they'll only do what Daddy says. So if Daddy says that we need to give Israel a ton of money and that we need to have the based black bisexual whatever, as a representative of our movement. Yeah, that's fine. That's totally great. That's great. Our greatest ally, Pride, Trump Pride, Log Cabin Republicans, and Lady MAGA. Like that's what you're going to get. You're going to get Lady MAGA tier conservatism for the foreseeable, until he's gone, until he goes away. So fuck Trump. Trump was anti-white as hell. Yeah, he was. We just gave them another $3.3 billion instead of dealing with the election fraud, if that tells you anything. Exactly. Trump was probably one of the worst presidents we've ever had in American history. Donald J. Trump will go down as one of the worst presidents in American history. Because he'll have dropped the fucking ball. He will have passed up. He'll have squandered more of a mandate, more political will, more inertia than any other president to have ever existed. No other, because he could still do it. He could still. I'm not saying like, you're saying there's still a chance. I don't mean that. I mean like he could, even at this fucking 11th hour, he could go full on dictator mode and it would work. Like that's what he's pissed away. That's what he pissed away. That even now, at this 11th hour when it would be messy as fuck, if he has enough of a cult following, not, you know, I don't mean just the Q people. I mean, fuck, if he were to go ham, even people like me would back him up. Because at least then, all right, you know, he's still a fucking retarded boomer, but it doesn't matter. You know, if he's the straw that breaks the camel's back, I don't give a fuck. I just want the camel's back to be broken. I don't give a shit if it's Trump that does it or not. And so I think he's a fucking retarded boomer. And I'd still back him up. So many people who all we want is for him to fucking do what he said he was going to do. All would be forgiven if he would just grow some fucking balls and do what needs to be done. Excuse me. Or else, you know, fuck it, right? Because there'll never be a right-wing president ever again, ever. There won't be. It's impossible. Demographically impossible. Trump was the last chance. Devin, you're nearly a boomer also. Yeah, no, I'm not, faggot. And just for saying that, just for being that retarded, I'm going to put you in timeout there, buddy. No, I'm not even close to boomer in age. How fucking old do you think I am? All right. Let's see here. You're the first person I've done that to. That's how fucking retarded your comment was. I've literally never done that. Let's see here. Let's see here. No, I'm definitely not a Zoomer. So here's the thing. I think what we're going to see happen is Biden will go into office, and AR or AK. I haven't. Well, I'm wondering how much I should disclose here. They're both competent weapons. I'll just put it that way. Part of it's just the. I would look at ammo prices and availability at this point, like right now, because it's so hard to get. Because they're both competent weapons. The AR or the AK is going to, it has a good reputation for working well in dirty environments. Like it's going to shoot no matter what. So that's something to take into consideration. But I also think it's a little more expensive, which might not matter if ammo is not. I don't know. I haven't bought any ammo in a long time because I stocked up a while ago. Like I knew when I saw the first Antifa riots back in like 2016. Like, this is new. This is different. This isn't normal. I'm going to have to... I should buy a lot of ammo now. Because I was thinking then, like... we've never had this before in this country. Like, there's always been protests. And there's always been, some violence here and there. But we've never had, like, people marching down, like, in 2016, if you remember, or I guess it would be 2017 after the inauguration. We had Antifa, all in black bloc, marching down the streets in D.C. and breaking windows and fucking, burning cars and shit like that. And it wasn't so much even that was happening, although that was kind of a big deal, too. It was also the fact that no one was getting arrested. Like, no one was doing anything to it. And it just, I had never seen anything like that in my life, and I decided this is probably not going anywhere good, and so I loaded up on ammo back then. But I would say, whatever you can get your hands on. Right now, I don't think you can get any ammo, either one. If you can, just go with whatever that is. Like, really, because good luck. I can't even find some of the more common ammo. Right now, because I've looked to get more common stuff, like even just 22 long rifle seems like it's hard to get. I mean, that pops up more often, I guess, but like just from big outlets, it's hard to get. Everyone should own both, but I love my AKs. How can conservatives seriously claim that they are on the winning side with Antifa riots? Yeah, I mean, that's because Boomer fucking Trump, who sucked at his job, couldn't remember. Oh, well, I'm going to declare Antifa a terrorist organization. He never did it. He never did it. And you want to know why he never did it? Because if he did it, a lot of his Jewish donors, a lot of his Jewish buddies, he would have to basically say their children were terrorists. And not only that, a lot of other rich Jews would now suddenly be funding terrorism. So Trump didn't do it because he'd have to put people in jail. He'd have to actually do something. So of course not. No, it didn't do it. Or there was no. And I knew when he said it was never going to happen. See, that's the thing. When you're black-pilled, it doesn't mean like, oh, I'm going to slit my wrist because everything's bad, nothing's good, nothing good. That's just what a faggot thinks it is. That's why, if you're a faggot, if you're a complete fucking pussy and you can't handle anything, and you need to lie to yourself to get through the day, because you're just such a fragile little fucking faggot that any little bad news at all is going to make you crack, then yeah, I guess that's what being black-pilled means. But if you're a grown-up and you understand that like life is just, it's not all fucking unicorns and fairies and fucking faggot dust, that you can handle it. You can handle the fact that the commies are winning. You can handle it. And you can prepare accordingly. And you can live your life in such a way that it doesn't really affect you as much. And you can get ready for a time when, should your precautions you're taking not be enough, right? So, look, people just need to figure out that this is, I don't know. I'm going to drink more coffee. I've had too much coffee this morning, but I'm going to drink more anyway. Okay. Just trying to finish life with a high score. Yeah, don't worry about the high score. Don't worry about trying to be the alpha slave. Who fucking cares about the high score? Everyone wants, that's the thing, is everyone that's wage slaving and everyone that's afraid to actually, don't, everyone that freaks out about, here's the funny thing. Everyone that said that, if you do anything in real life, you're a Fed. If you try to organize, you're a Fed. If you want to do anything outside of just fucking, talking about how base Trump is on the internet, you're a Fed. And now what are they doing? They're having they're organizing and they're going to protests and stuff like that. Well, okay, so I guess now magically you're not a Fed anymore because you're doing it. So look, the people that are afraid of getting of losing their jobs and of losing, if they work at a job that is morally opposed to how they view the world, their worldview. Like if you're working for Netflix, for example, right? If you're working for the enemy, and a lot of people on the right are, you're worthless. You're a garbage human being as far as I'm concerned. If you can't give up your Netflix subscription, you can't give up your fucking Amazon Prime, that's too much for you. That's why we're losing, and that's why we're gonna lose. It gets worse. Here's the thing. Here's the black pill, guys. This is just the start. This isn't like where we turn it around. It's not. What did I say? Fucking 3 years ago, they were going to normalize pedophilia. They haven't done it yet. I mean, you can see that they're doing it now, right? They haven't done it yet. I mean, they're going to normalize it. I mean, it's going to be on daytime television. I mean, it's going to be not weird to be, it'll be just as not weird as it was this year to be a tranny running for office, as it will be eventually, I don't know how long, to be a open pedophile running for office in the future. That's going to happen. That's going to happen. It's happened before. Historically, it'll happen again. And like I said, it's not like this isn't like a This isn't like a hyperbole. This is real. I mean, they're legitimately going to have. And as long as, and look, as long as they're able to keep providing for people, and no one's going to stop it. No one's going to stop it. As long as everyone still has shelter and food, no one's going to stop it. I was talking to someone that I hadn't talked to in several years the other day. And it was really kind of depressing. I forgot how normy this person was. Because we hadn't talked, and I mean like this had been like 5-6 years, so before Trump was even like a thing. And because I knew it would come up, I brought up like Trump and, you know, the political situation, and I didn't want to turn it into like this political argument. And I remembered he was concerned. He was a Christian, all right, like a hardcore Christian, and but he was also kind of like these megachurch kind of hardcore Christians. You know what I mean? So I didn't know where he'd be politically. I kind of just hoped that he'd be, you know, pro-Trump and we could leave it at that, or, you know, something like easy and not have to get into the weeds about it. And so what I said to just lob him a softball, because I figured, well, this guy's like super pro-Trump pro-Christianity. And so I'll just say something about how I don't support trans kids. That should be pretty universal, right? That should be pretty universal. And I said, well, you know, look, I was like, yeah, it's just, you know, things are getting crazy with like the trans kid stuff or whatever. Like that's like, like I said, I was just trying to get over the subject. It was kind of like a business related call. I didn't want to get into politics with this guy. And he said, well, I don't care what people do as long as, you know, it's in the privacy of their own home. He said that about trans kids. And I at that point I was like, well, I can't just let that. I don't, you know, business call or not, I can't just let that hang in the air. Because like I said, I don't care if I lose business standing up for what I believe in. And I'm not going to just like let that go. I could have easily have said, oh, yeah, okay, you know, or whatever, or just not said anything and just kept going with it. But that's called being a pussy. And so I said, dude, they're taking kids away from parents and without their consent, chemically castrating their children. Is that in your home enough? And he said, well, that's on those parents. That's on those parents. And I was like, look, that's a fucking cop out, dude. That's a fucking cop out. That's the rugged individualism taken to its retarded fucking extreme. And yeah, you can make the argument that, okay, maybe chances are you were probably a shitty parent if your kids wanted to be a tranny. Probably you didn't do the best job preparing that kid for the evil world that he's living in, right? Probably. I'll admit that. But you're not opposed to the state taking away a parent's rights like that and just forcibly chemically castrating their... You don't see where this could go even worse than this, which is already pretty fucking bad? Needless to say that this conversation did not lead to me getting any business opportunities that I was originally reaching out to this guy for. And but that's what I'm talking about. This guy is a hardcore, I mean like hardcore Christian. Hardcore. He goes to, like I said, it's the mega church kind, so, you know, might as well not, it's just like, it's really just, for him, it's like a fraternity, really. It doesn't, I mean, they go there for the preacher. They don't even go there for Jesus so much. And there is some, I think, if I remember correctly, there's like some of that prosperity preaching garbage that he believes in, right? Like, oh, the reason that's happening to their kids is they must not love Jesus enough. I love Jesus enough, so that'll never happen to my kids. But this is how and why the pedophilia shit will get normalized. Because even people like this guy, someone that I thought you'd be able to depend on to at least be anti-trans kids, for fuck's sake, he'll say the same shit about the pedo stuff. Well, those parents just failed. Those parents they just weren't, that's why their kid's now in a relationship with a 45-year-old man. Because, those parents just failed. Okay, but that solves the problem of a kid getting raped. How exactly? Oh, it doesn't? But it's not your problem, so you don't give a fuck. I see. That's how it is. And that's how it is. And so that's exactly why it'll be normalized. Because that's how it is. People don't care about the community anymore because there's no fucking community. And eventually it'll lead to a conflict. I was listening to Millennial last night while I was doing some work around the house. I'm actually improving a fence that isn't quite as bunny proof. It's like it's never going to be bunny proof, I feel like. But do you know bunnies can climb? They can fucking climb. And they do when they're hungry. Anyway, I was listening to Millennial, and they made. I actually didn't know. I didn't know who these people were that he was Millennial. Which, by the way, I'll be on Millennial if you guys don't know what that is. Millennial Woes does a thing every year where he interviews a lot of dissident right or whatever you want to call people, personalities every year, and it's like so much content. So if you're needing some content because it's the holidays and you're with your family and you want to ditch out on boring conversations with Aunt Sally, subscribe to him over on. He's still on YouTube, believe it or not, but he's also obviously on BitChute, and I believe will be broadcasting on DLive as well. But he live streams to YouTube still, at least for now, and I'll be on that tonight at, I think, 7 or 8 o'clock Pacific time. I'd have to take a look. But he has a schedule on millennialwoes.com. And, but anyway, I'll be on that. Anyway, so I was listening to that last night. He was interviewing these two guys. I had no idea who they were. But he made some comment about how in America, or he was talking, because he's Scottish, and he was talking to a guy who was American, and they made some comment about how it used to be years ago that there were different cultures in different fucking states. And so if you went from New York to Texas, it was like going to a different country in many ways. In fact, there was entire TV shows about that. There was a show starring James Garner about a New Mexico, like a cowboy from Taos, New Mexico, who goes and lives in New York, and it's so funny because he's like, fish out of water, this cowboy, and that kind of a thing, right? Like there was all kinds of TV shows and movies about this idea that all the different states are so different that like when you go to another state, it's a new culture and everything. And look, that still nominally exists, right? And especially if you go to like the more rural areas, that's going to be more apparent. But more and more and more, this stupid, global homo, one size fits all, disposable corporate culture is what you get no matter where you go. Like everywhere you go, it's the same gay strip mall. Like they might have maybe, I think when Roosh did his tour across America, he illustrated that pretty well, or documented it really, where he went from, he did like a year-long tour of the United States and stopped in many major cities and showed how a lot of it just blurred all together. It just blurred all together into this Starbucks, McDonald's, Chipotle, Globo Homo, Fag Fest. And that's what. And by the way, that's not just limited to America anymore. That's spreading everywhere in the world. But specifically, that's already kind of happened in America. And part of what I think facilitated that was television, national television. The fact that everyone was watching, instead of having your local entertainment, and your local culture, everyone in the entire country was watching the same fiction. Day in, day out, day in, day out. Everyone was watching Seinfeld. Everyone was everyone in the country. It didn't matter if you lived in Albuquerque, if you lived in San Francisco, if you lived in Manhattan, if you lived in Boise. You were watching a bunch of fucking Jews in New York complain about the soup Nazi. And so the culture was kind of, I guess, watered down into this globo homo view by television in many ways. And it wasn't not just television, also music, because you used to have local music too, right? I mean, you didn't have the ability, a band didn't have the ability to travel the entire country before there was recorded music. So really it wasn't just, I wouldn't say just television, it was just media in general. And so they were talking about how, they were lamenting how all these different states, all these different cultures were kind of being mashed together and mixed together into like this brown kind of, not like a paste, and just kind of like spread over like a dried piece of bread, and that is America. And that's essentially what's been going on now for decades. But what are we seeing right now? What are we seeing right now? We're seeing a polarization of the left and the right, right? We're seeing a polarization and an unwillingness to compromise on the left and the right. And I think because what they've done is certainly they've destroyed all these little mini factions, all these little mini cultures, all these subcultures that used to coexist and make the American continent more of a like a quilt or a tapestry of all these different cultures, and instead they've forced it together into this soup. But just like the soup, it's like oil and water. You can get oil and water, and you can mix it up on a paint shaker, and then you set it down on a table, and eventually it's going to separate. And there's going to be oil on the top and water on the bottom. And it doesn't matter how much you shake it, that's eventually what's always going to fucking happen. And I think that's what's gone on now, is because the only two cultures that can exist now are left and right. That because we've been so mixed together, we are just separating into these two hemispheres of these two ways of looking at the universe. And we all just share the same gay ass culture and the same, geography for that matter. So I think that the polarization is just going to be increased because that's the only way we can have a different culture. If I want to have a different culture, I can't just move to a different state or a different city. It's going to be the same gay ass culture there. No matter where you go, you can't escape it. The only way you can differentiate yourself from other people in your society, especially if you're unhappy with what you're getting, is go left or right. Those are the only two subcultures that are allowed to exist in this corporate oligarchy, because it doesn't affect sales, or at least not significantly enough. I went to the library the other day, and all the books were feminist and BLM. Yeah. Yep. It's going to get worse. We're not winning. We never got tired of winning. Okay? We were never winning. We were never winning. Everyone telling you that we were winning was either lying to you or retarded or deluding themselves and taking you along for the ride. We were never winning. Someone did a diamond. Settle once and for all thoughts on Nick Fuentes. I've talked about it. I even talked about it recently. Look, I think he's young. I think he's trying to do what he thinks he needs to do. And I don't know how that's going to unfold. I don't know how it's going to unfold. I hadn't watched anything he had done in a really long time. And then I watched one of his streams, or I listened to it rather. I want to say like 2 or 3 nights ago or something like that. And it was frustrating, but also encouraging, I'll have to say. It was frustrating because he was literally saying the exact same kinds of things that I was saying maybe 3 months ago or so, and that I was getting heat for saying from maybe not him personally, but like certainly people that like him, right? Oh, you're just black-pilled. You're just black-pilled. Oh, you're just black-pilled. And he seems like he's coming to terms with a lot of this stuff. But again, his solution still is, therefore, we must use the system. We're going to primary all these guys. We're going to, first of all, okay, look, good luck, dude. Good luck. I'm not saying he can't accomplish it. I'm just saying he can't accomplish that quickly. That's going to take a really long fucking time. It's going to be a real long time. And it's kind of like when I talked about rot in my stream, what was that, yesterday or the day before, whenever that was, and talked about how you have to be able to assess the damage to the country and realize at a certain point you can't remove the rot because it'll kill the country. There won't be enough left. There won't be anything left. If you cut away all the rot, there's all it is rot. I think this fraud should shine a giant light on that. And the funny thing is, like I said, he gets the problem, right? I think he's realizing how disappointing that the establishment right is, and that he understands that they're not going to deliver, and they never have. Look, I've been watching this happen a lot longer than he has, and which is why, by the way, I'm not mad that he doesn't see it, because I didn't see it for until I was older than him. Okay, so I think it's an age thing. He thinks that, because I did the same. I took the exact same route in many ways, where I was like, oh, the world's fucked. We have the commies are closing in, and so what did I do? I went and did work for libertarian organizations, and because I thought I incorrectly thought that was the way to stop the commies, was through these organizations that ended up, in my opinion, being kind of part of the problem, right? But I was trying to use the system to fix the system. And as my politics evolved, and I'm sure his politics will evolve too, everyone's does, and that'll be interesting to see where it leads. I don't know. I don't particularly care for some of his I don't want to say methods. What am I trying to think of here? I think he treats people kind of shitty. I'll just put it that way. I think he treats people kind of shitty, and I think that he could use some humility. But again, I think a lot of this is all age-related stuff. And so it's not like a big deal. He doesn't occupy my mind very much, all right? Like I said, I didn't even listen to this guy for months or think about him or anything like that. I was just curious after we got after the what day is it? Well, maybe it was Monday night then. Yeah, because I think it was after the electors, the news about the electors going for Biden. That's when I was like, well, what are the Groypers thinking about this? I just wanted to check the pulse. So I think it must have been Monday night that I listened to him. And look, he wasn't trying to peddle some gay ass white pills. He wasn't. I mean, he kind of was in that he was trying to use the system and saying they're going to, but he wasn't trying to say, he wasn't doing the QAnon stuff where it's like, oh, you saying there's still a chance, that kind of stuff. He seemed to be a little more realistic about the options that Trump, it sounded like me, like I was saying. He sounded more like, look, there's some legal options that Trump could, possibly do, but that's not where that's probably not going to happen. So, he's a smart guy, and he's a good speaker, and I'm sure he'll play a role in the future, in one way or another. But it is what it is. All right. Oh yeah, someone saying that Saturday, December 19th, I will be on the Raging Humanist channel. That is true. I have to figure all that. I'll be on Millennial today, and then Raging Humanist on Saturday. Let's see here. He is taking his No E-Girl slogan to... Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, look, that's the other thing I would say, but again, I don't want to make this about... I'm going to criticize Nick for like an entire show. I've already talked about this stuff. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's doing it. He's not the only one doing it. The people that are trying to bully anything female out of the movement, I just think it's a bad strategy, and it's not going to be successful. That's never worked before for anybody. And so culturally, it's impossible to exclude women from the movement. If you lived in a different time, in a different place, in a different culture, like if you lived in Iran in the 80s, you could do it, but you don't. And so you kind of have to work with what you got. And if you want to change the culture to eventually resemble a patriarch kind of society, yeah, I agree with that. You should be trying to do that. But right now, you can't just be excluding women entirely. And I don't know that I don't even, like I said, I don't watch him, so I don't know that that's even what he's doing. But I know there are people like that or not like that, but people on the right that are very anti-woman. And I get it. I did a whole stream. I don't want to go and do it again. We did a whole stream about this not that long ago. In fact, it's even on BitChute. I don't put them all on BitChute, but I think the last one that ended up on BitChute, or maybe now that the one I did on YouTube is probably on there. The one before that, I went over all this e-girl stuff. Here comes the NFJ apologists. Well, yeah, he's got that's the other reason it's annoying to talk about him. It doesn't matter. He's got a fanatic fan base in the same way Trump does. And so you say anything, it's like, whoa, emotional thinking. Elf on a Shelf gave me a diamond. I appreciate it. I still don't know how all that works. I'm going to release the lemons, though. Well, as long as we're looking at this stuff, I'll open the chest. How does this work? Open chest. All right, it's going to open in... I don't know why it requires a timer. It'll open up in 20 seconds. I'm going to have more coffee here. I agree. I think they should take a note from Patriotic Alternative on the girl thing. Yeah, Patriotic Alternative, I feel like, is a very well-run organization. And that's because it's run by Mark Collette, who's a very competent, smart guy who has been in politics for many, many years. And has and didn't just jump into politics because of Trump or something like that. You know what I mean? Or Brexit or whatever. He's been in the game a really long time. He gets it. He has the experience. He has the wisdom. He has the organizational skills that, quite frankly, I don't have. And he's able to bring people. He's just a genuinely good guy, which is what you need at the top of an organization like that to bring people together. So I agree, and that's what I meant to when I talk about we have a lot of people on the right. I think sometimes that they make it about them. They make it about that. It's more. It's in the same way that those mega churches make it about the preacher and not about Jesus. They want to be the one. The preacher wants to be the one on stage. If you go to the website of these churches, it's not like a big picture of Jesus. It's a big picture of them. That is a similar thing happens on the right. where they don't want it to be about the ideals. They don't want it to be about the philosophy. They want it to be about them. And because of that, it's kind of, there are no principles for that part of the movement, right? Because it's just it's like with Trump, right? Same thing. It's about Trump. It's not about the principles. What are Trump's principles? We don't even know. It's whatever Trump says that day, and they can change on a dime, and they often do. And when they do, his followers just they just update their firmware, and they go right back to supporting Trump because that's their favorite thing to do, regardless of what he's saying. And so a lot of people on the right do the same thing. It's the same exact source code. They just do, it's all about me. And if I do a complete 180 on something, because nothing that I do was about principles or any kind of philosophy, it was just about me. So really, it's just whatever I feel that day. Everyone's just you got to fall in line, and and that's. I'm not saying that a lot of people do that, and it's maybe a bit of an extreme, like Trump's an extreme case of it. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of people like that, and maybe it's on the left too. I don't know. I don't really keep up with the left, to be honest, because it's it's force fed to us, no matter where you are in the digital space. Anyway, you know what the left. You always know what the left thinks because you can't avoid the propaganda. But on the right, we certainly have, I think, a tendency to want to. And you know what? Maybe, like I said, it's probably universal. It's probably not even just on the right. I think humans just have a tendency to want to follow people more than philosophy. Like well, think about what they're called. They're called Trump supporters, right? They're not called conservatism, supporters or whatever it is that I don't even know. Or that even it would almost even be better if you called it Trumpism supporters, so at least there's an ideology that they're following. But no, it's just Trump supporters. It's about a person. It's about a guy. And that's often the case, right? Like it's about a personality. It's a cult of personality. It's not about a philosophy or anything like that. It's about a person, So did the chess thing open? I think it did. Okay. Sorry if I missed any of your... I'm rewinding here. I've missed some of these diamonds, I think. Likely scenarios for the U.S. in the next 40 years. 40 years? That's a... I mean, obviously, at the very least, a breakup of the United States. The United States will not exist in the current form that it does now in 40 years. No question. No possible way, in my opinion, in my view, the United States exists in the same way that it does now. Now, whether that means a balkanization, or what, there was a... I think it has to be a balkanization at this point. There's just too many... You'd have to... I mean... Let's just be real here. I mean, there's only a few ways to get rid of people, right? You can move them, or you can put them in the ground. And there's just so many people you'd have to put in the ground, and I'm still thinking that there might even be, I don't know if I would call it a peaceful separation possibility, but maybe some form of that. Like if it gets to the point where, I mean. I get it. There's a lot of people that say, well, the left, they don't let you run away, right? Like if you go to the suburbs, they follow you and this sort of a thing. And that's very possible. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think that a peaceful separation of a state might be possible, or maybe a couple states, or it's possible. I don't know. Doesn't matter, though. 40 years, that's a long time. 40 years, America will not exist in the current state that it does now. And plus, whatever does exist, whatever remains that is And look, let's take it the other way. Maybe the right completely loses. Completely lose, as in they get put in the ground. That's another possibility. In 40 years, that's a possibility. And we just live in that World Economic Forum's version of the, it's, you don't own anything, and, everyone's just basically an insect person. That's a very good possibility in 40 years. There's nothing saying that's not going to happen. Certainly not. I don't see people on the right who are effectively preventing the movement to the to that goal right now. So if the right never does effectively create any obstacles for that eventuality, that's where we could be in 40 years. 40 years is a really long fucking time, though. I mean, 40 years is so long that we could swing to the right and then swing back to the left in that amount of time, and which is what might happen, and we could still have what I just said could still be true. Like, we could have like a blip, right? The pendulum could swing to the right for like a little while. Maybe it swings a little too hard and gives the left what it needs in terms of like another persecution story. And then it swings back to the left, and then we get the smart cities and all that stuff. I don't know. 40 years is a really long time. Someone says, I'll be dead. How old are you, man? People live a long time. What are you, like 50? If you're 50, you might be dead. But even if you're 50, you might not be dead. So like there's I guess it depends on your health care and all that stuff. Who fucking cares how many black criminals Harris locked up? I don't know what you guys are talking about. Humans won't exist in 40 years at this rate. Humans will exist. Maybe white people won't. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, there might not be very many of us, but it will still exist. Another diamond. I'm glad I caught this one. It'll be fun watching the neolib versus socialist war. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's basically the war we're in right now. I think that means I'll be dead is that we'll die in a war. Well, don't die in the war. Be prepared. I'm not going to die in any war. Speaking of not dying in wars, man, I had no idea that plate carriers were so expensive for like a good one, and that and even more so the plates are expensive. Like, it's kind of not really worth getting unless if you have a ton of money, which I don't have a ton of money. I was looking at those just because, like, again, I don't think that's why I'm not going to get one, because it's the chances of me ever having to strap on a plate carrier is pretty low, pretty slim, right? And even if you have one, from what I've heard from people that have had to wear them out in the field on a regular basis, it's kind of like a pain in the ass. In fact, I was talking to one guy and he said that if it wasn't for air support, like in Afghanistan and Iraq and everything else, it'd be stupid to wear them, because the reason why they were even ever ambushed and or one, not the only reason, but like one of the reasons that they'd get ambushed and take casualties is they had all this extra shit they had to carry around. Like, if they had to actually chase these guys down the street, they're carrying like 60, maybe more pounds worth of gear on them. And these guys are running around in a fucking man dress, And so even though they have no equipment or whatever, like, just athletically, you have to be so much more beefed up to be able to, get on the same level as some guy just running around wearing, a pound of clothing. So I think if it was realistically, you're in some kind of firefight, you're not going to have air support, And so, plate carrier is kind of, it's a luxury item. I don't think it's really that necessary. And they're expensive as fuck. Only a sick man would secure a heaven for himself while leaving hell for his children. Well, there must be a lot of sick boomers. The justification they're giving for continuing Afghanistan is feminism. Is that what they've been reduced to? Well, that's kind of how I think I remember the Obama administration talking a lot about that. In fact, I think Hillary did like speeches on that, like how we need to liberate the women of Afghanistan. Sick Anons are abandoning their parents for communism now. I'm not sure what that means. Whites need to start having lots of children if we want to begin turning the tides. Easier said than done. You know, if you've got a woman you can trust, that's the hang up. It's not even so much, look, it's easy to get laid. It's even kind of easy to get a girlfriend. I mean, maybe not for everybody, but for a lot of people, okay? But to find someone that that you can, and this probably goes the other way too, but I mean, to find someone that you can trust and not fuck up your whole world, and the world of your children, if you put a baby in them, that's tough. That's tough. That's tougher than a lot of people who get lucky would like to admit. Like that, it's tough. It's tough. There are, I mean, I can't, I'm not going to go into any details, but I think any guy who doesn't have children, I think that's one of the biggest reasons. You know, most men that don't have children, it's not about not being able to afford it. If that's your excuse, you're just being a faggot. It's not about being able, oh, I can't afford them, or I can't do that. Like, there's lots of other excuses, but the big one is just like finding a woman that would be a competent mother is difficult. You know, and wife and mother, it's very difficult. And you know, it goes both ways. You know, saying that, you know, being a man who would be a competent husband and father isn't easy, and not every guy's living up to that. You know, I get that. And that's the unfortunate thing right now. And look, the people against us that are shaping our society, a lot of, if you look at what they're doing, a lot of it's just exacerbating that reality. You know, it's making it more difficult for white men to compete in the sexual marketplace because women are more susceptible to the propaganda, and look at what's the propaganda saying. You know, go find yourself a big black guy to fuck. Whether you're watching a tampon commercial or whatever, you know, like it's everything. It's all around you. Whitey is mighty just donated $1 diamond. It's easy to tell yourself that it's not your problem. Well, like I said, it goes both ways. You know, like there's some men that just aren't. They wouldn't make good fathers and good husbands. And women look for different things than men, right? So, for men, I mean, at least for me personally, I don't really care about a lot of the I don't have like a long list. It seems like it should be a fairly easy. Like, I just have to think that, like I said, I just have to trust that you're not going to fuck up my world. You know, like you're not going to do something. Like, I have to just be able to trust you, really. Like, that's it. Or at least predict, even if it's not like, which I guess is in a way is a form of trust. I have to be able to somewhat be able to predict how you're going to behave. So even though like no one's perfect and everyone has shitty behavior, if I can at least predict what that shitty behavior is, and I can then, take that into account, that okay, she's not the brightest bulb, or whatever her deficiency is. If I can at least accommodate for her failings, and still trust that she's not gonna, fuck up everything I have, because, and I don't mean like personal possessions. I mean like you have a kid with someone, you have to be able to predict how they're going to act as a mother. And if you can't predict that accurately, or if you just can't trust them to be, there's some women that I've dated that I wouldn't even trust to like babysit my nieces and nephews. And I shouldn't have been dating them, right? But sometimes you don't find out until you do date them for a little bit. Anyway. You gotta scroll through a bunch of stuff here. Keep going. All right. Got a diamond from IS Bass. Appreciate that. This guy is boring as F. All right. Well, guess what? You are now muted. I'm having fun banning people today. Never ban people till today. This is fun. If I'm so boring, how fucking boring are you that you have to listen to a boring guy? Let's see here. Girls are not interested in black-pilled men. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. I can tell you from personal experience that they are. Devin, one of your YouTube mods banned me for talking about Mega Bowl. Well, if you were spamming it, I don't know. I actually don't even know who my YouTube mods are. I just modded some people randomly one day. Mel Gibson's uncle just donated 1 diamond. If you are bored, you are probably a boring person. Have you read the Turner Diaries yet? No, I still haven't. I started at one point, but I never finished it. Women prefer bugmen. Some women do. Here's the thing. Because the roles have kind of reversed, if you have women that are more masculine or more, alpha, if you want to call it that, then they want a man who's more submissive, and they want a man that's more beta. That's just... You'll see that pairing a lot, like especially like the bugmen. Look at anytime they have a girlfriend, what's their girlfriend like? Their girlfriend, as they used to say, wears the pants in the family, right? A lot of times they'll have an OnlyFans, and the guy doesn't complain about it. A lot of times that they'll be the ones that the women will be the ones that make the money, and while this guy plays the Nintendo Switch all day long and collects Marvel movie figurines or something gay like that. That's a lot of relationships right now. Let's see here. Culture of Critique. That's a good book. When will DOTR Book 2 be out? I was trying to have it out before Christmas, but that's not going to happen. At a certain point, I just have to suck it up and let it be a little inaccurate if that's what happens. I've been trying to make it as relevant as possible, but 2020 was such a fucking cluster of a year, I had to change a lot. The only thing I didn't like about the Turner Diaries was the order got a bit creepy. I don't know what that is. Bullshit. You're my bitch. Make me a fucking sandwich. Who are you talking to? Better not be me. Or I will ban you too, since I'm banning everybody. Damn, he nailed it on that. That is a lot of relationships right now. I know a handful of them. Yeah, no, think about it. There's a lot of relationships. I mean, all you have to do is look at a BLM rally. What do you see? The BLM rally. You see the woman that she's the one that's screaming and being aggressive and yelling, and at her side is some cucky little soy boy guy, that's got like the problem glasses. Like, he's the one that's wearing the problem glasses. He's got like some half beard, and he's got some fucking Marvel or Star Wars T-shirt on, and he just looks like he he's just going along with whatever she's saying. She's calling the shots because he's addicted to the pussy or whatever it is. That's every BLM rally. And that's the guy who watches as that same girl that he's in love with gets on Craigslist and requests like a black bull to come fuck her, and he lets it happen. He doesn't care. I'm talking about my book. Where's the audiobook hosted? So I haven't been able to follow up on this because the company I would go through is being kind of shitty about it, and they've got bad response times. But apparently, I had to go. I mean, because at first it got banned off Audible, and then I got banned off of. It got banned off Audible, so I went to this other company that would then try to list it on all these other sites, and then I got banned off audiobooks.com, and then I got it's listed on Google Play, but you can't buy it now, and maybe you can get it. I don't even know if you can get it on iTunes now at this point. So it's just getting fucking banned everywhere, and so at a certain point, I'm gonna have to figure out a way of maybe just hosting it on my website, finding a way to do that. The problem, of course, with that is the piracy thing, which I'm not saying you guys are going to do that, but what our enemies will do to try to hurt creators like me financially, if that's like our life's blood, because we can't monetize anything or, then what they'll do is they'll buy your books and your other materials that you're trying to sell separately, and they'll just, host it online for free so that if people just Google it or whatever, they just have it. And, unfortunately, enough people will do that to where it hurts. And I hate DRM and all that stuff, but I don't know. I still feel a little weird about just throwing MP3s of it up on and maybe it might be what I have to do. I don't know. And I'll tell you what, if I get to book 2 and I can't find any marketplace to sell it, maybe that's what I'll do. I'll just, when I release book 2, I'll be like, you can pay for the MP3s, and I'm sure at that point it'll get out. If it's probably already out, it's probably already pirated, but that's just something I would prefer to have it go. Plus the bandwidth, that would be a lot of bandwidth. A lot of people downloading the MP3s. I don't know if that would be costly or not. I'm in Belgium. If I buy it from Walmart, I'll be able to listen to it. Oh, you're talking to someone else. I'm always the only person without a mask when I go out. It's infuriating. Luckily, that's not the case where I'm at. I'm next to a small rural town, and I'd say it's about 50-50. It's getting a little higher. Last time I went out, it was probably more 80-20, but that goes to my rule. It's 80-20. Because we live in a place, or I live in a place where even when there was explicit statewide restrictions, because we're so out in the middle of nowhere, no one was really following them. In fact, there was a local bar that had a sign on the door saying masks are required, but then you go inside and literally nobody would be wearing them, right? And so at restaurants and no one, the only people that wore masks, there was a national chain kind of store, and they wore masks, but no one else did. And so, but that said, now that I don't think there's any kind of mandate in the state, which I don't know for sure, because to be honest, I don't keep up with state politics that much, because it's kind of irrelevant where I'm at right now. But the last time I was in town, which was yesterday, because I'm building the fence, doing the fence stuff, and I had to buy some binding wire. And that was approximately, I'd say, closer to 80-20. 80-20, about 80% of the people wearing masks here. And it's totally voluntary. So that's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the people are incompetent. Oh, good. And they're diamond. Look at that. And you're not asking a question, so that's fine. Have you been pressed for not wearing a mask? Yes. that national chain store, I went in there. I didn't realize that their masks they were doing the mask thing because no one else in town was. And when I went in there, they started yelling at me that masks were required, and I just did a 180 and haven't been back. And that was like in fucking February or something, or around that. I haven't been there in like 10 months, 9 or 10 months, because I don't need to go in. I don't need to deal with that. And there's other places I can shop that have similar stuff. It's not as good. I have to drive a little further and whatever, but fuck it. I live in rural West Virginia and work with farmers often. When I meet them, I'm often ridiculed if I try to wear a mask. Yeah. There's a lot of agriculture where I'm at and the farmers, and none of them will wear a mask. Mel Gibson's uncle, Diamond, what content creators do you recommend donating to? Whoever you like, whoever you like. It's not an easy job. And it's not a financially rewarding job for many. For some it is. I would say prioritize the ones you like, but if you like a bunch of them equally, then just give the people who probably don't, there's a lot of people who aren't making Tim Pool money, okay? There's a lot of people who aren't making Tim Pool money, and they're not making Tim Pool money because they are saying things that Tim Pool would never say in a million years, because if he did, he wouldn't be making Tim Pool money anymore. So prioritize people who take it on the chin because that they do say what they believe in. But that's up to you, whoever you like. I've had people ask me a couple times, and it's just like, whoever you think is going to do the most good. It's the free market of ideas. Let's see here. Farmers are cool. Yeah, some of them are. Not all of them are. Rebreathing your shit damages your neurons. Yeah, probably. The problem is that it won't stop at masks. Next, it'll be vax certifications, and then it'll be... Yeah. No, that's the thing. Is if anything has been proven to us in the last 10 or 20 years or so, it's that the slippery slope fallacy is not a fallacy. It's all, if it's going to, if depending on the direction of the slippery slope, right? Because the slope is, you could go towards globalism on one side, right? Or you can go towards nationalism on the other side. And if it's going to slip towards globalism, it's a slippery slope. That's the slippery side of the slope. The slippery side of the hill is the side that has globalism on it. They've greased that side up. So if they want to do something that's going to possibly, even in some tiny way, make it easier to get down to the globalism that they want you to be sliding into, it'll be slippy as fuck. So the vaccine thing, the whole COVID situation is really a power grab, and it's working. It's working. I mean, that's why I said fuck Trump. Like, look, he's part of it. That's going to be that's his legacy. You don't believe me? Listen to Trump. He now brings it up all the time. His hot little press secretary, or whatever her title is, just what was it, yesterday? That was her big brag, was how awesome Operation Warp Speed had gone, and how everyone was a hater and a doubter, but Trump delivered. That's like his big thing. That's his big selling point right now. Like, that's what he's promoting. Operation Warp Speed. They said it couldn't be done. Like when Trump's doing his speeches, he'll bring it up. When he announced it, they did this big long video where he's like showing all these clips of media personalities saying, "Oh, it's impossible. Trump could never come up with a vaccine that fast." And then, at the end, he comes up and he's like, "Many people doubted me, They said it wasn't possible, but I have proved them all wrong. I mean, that was... And it was like an hour of that. Maybe not an hour, but like it was like a half hour of that. Of him bragging about the vaccine. Trump sucks. Trump has... What has he done for you? He's done literally fucking nothing. All he has done is piss off people you hate. That's really all. That's all he did. And they were being irrational. They had no reason to be pissed off. All right, here we go. Pfizer makes tranny kid hormones, and they're the one, excuse me, saving us with the vaccine. You can't win with him. He created a great awakening. No, he didn't. Like I said, he was the product of that. He was the product of that. It went down in a different... I mean, because the butterfly effect, right? Like everything, every piece to the puzzle affects everything else around it. And Trump was a pretty big piece, right? When he moves, he was moving a lot of other things. But he was a product of what was already happening. I think that white America was starting to feel an existential threat for the first time. You know, it was one thing to be told to be tolerant, and it was another thing entirely to be told that you're evil and your children are evil, and that on top of that, you know, we're going to chemically castrate your kids and take... Like, there was enough existential, real, measurable existential threats in play to where I think they finally reacted. Unfortunately, they went immediately back to sleep the moment Trump got elected because they believed the hype, right? They believed the hype around Trump. And the funny thing is, a lot of the hype around Trump was even contrary to what Trump himself had said on the campaign trail. A lot of people were just believing whatever they wanted to believe about the guy because they thought he was the end-all, be-all. Excuse me. But, I mean, if you pay attention to what he was actually saying, man, maybe this is the COVID. No, I don't have a fever like that. I've just got this. I've been out in the sand is what it is. Been blowing around, working with rotting plants in the sand, in the cold sand. Yeah, if you just listen to what he said, it's not like it shouldn't be that big of a shocker. Trump was honest about a lot of what he was going to do. He was honest about his, let's, I want people to come into this country in largest numbers ever. He said that. For no reason. He didn't have to say that. He said that at the State of the Union address, and I don't even think it was on the teleprompter. But and then he said that he wanted to build the wall, but he wanted a big, beautiful door. He also said that he didn't want to deport the millions of illegals that were already here because they were good people. So he wanted to find he was basically saying he wanted amnesty. And he flip-flopped on so many fucking things. I did a video on my channel called Art of the Schlemiel. It's just a montage of Trump sounding like a fucking retard. That goes on forever. Like, one minute he's pro-gun, the next minute he wants to ban guns. One minute he's pro-abortion, pro-partial birth abortion. The next minute he doesn't like abortion. He just says he doesn't have any principles. And no one cares, because like I said before, it's not about principles with this guy. It's about the cult of personality. Trump could be turned into a full-on socialist, or a communist. And he might have to move a little slowly, but not really. He could turn into like a full-on communist. Trump could get Trump supporters to like Antifa. He could. He could get them to like Antifa. It would take a little bit of time, but he could do it. Because it doesn't matter. He's not principle-based. He's not principle-based, and his followers aren't principle-based. Yes, Trump is Jewish. Well, all of his kids are married to Jews, or I don't know if all of them are, but enough of them are. All of Biden's kids are married to Jews, all of them. So it's kind of like, pick your poison. He's a nationalist and a globalist. I don't know. I think he's basically a globalist that maybe has more allegiances to local money interests, but the level of money interest that we're talking, that's pretty much a global money interest at that point. Remember before the election, he was talking about, was it Crane or some air conditioning company, and how, if you elect him, they're not going to shut down the plant. They're going to keep the plant. That plant got shut down. Like right after he got elected. Or not right after, like a year after. And he went there and spoke at the plant, and they were saying, like, oh, we're not moving it to Mexico. Remember that? That was like a big deal. And then no one talked about it ever again. Yeah, that plant got shut down. So he didn't do anything that a lot of people thought he was going to do. Should I marry a Jewess? No, I've dodged that bullet a couple times. You're fun. Like, it's kind of like the thing I was just saying about finding a woman that you would trust to be a mother and a wife. You're fundamentally different. That's one of the reasons why we can't live together, right? There's just fundamental differences between the way that their morality is and the way our morality is. And you don't want to introduce that into your household. But do what you want, Look it up. Trump is short for Trumplador. He's literally Jewish. I don't know. I guess it's possible. What a waste of 4 years. And remember, Kushner is Trump's advisor, the Omen Man. Yeah. Carrier, that's right. That's what it was. Yeah. What if they convert? Yeah, do what you want, dude. Like, I don't think there's... look. It's not all genetic, but it is somewhat genetic. So you have to be aware of that. And your kids will be Jews, technically. So that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you what not to do or what to do. I'm just going to say, and look, I've done the math on that one before. It was before I was Jew-pilled, but I wondered about that, if that would be a problem, having, just even like, in my case, they weren't converted. They were just more atheists, right? They just didn't believe in their church. They weren't Christian, though. So if she's Christian, I don't know, it's probably okay to some extent, but it's, like I said, it's not just genetics, but it's also not just, she's Christian. You know what I mean? Because there's a little bit of genetics, and that goes for all of us. A lot of your personality type, the reason why people say you always turn into your parents is you're made out of your parents. Some of that's always going to be in you. You don't have to like it. It doesn't matter. It's still in you. You're always going to have some of those traits. In the same way that your other organs resemble your parents, your brain resembles your parents' brain. So it's hardware. And so if a Jewish person converts to Christianity, that's good. That's good. I'm not saying that I'm not saying it's, but I'm just saying, just be mindful of that. There is a genetic component to all this stuff, and you might not have a problem with that, and that's fine. Work out totally great. I don't know. And it depends on the person too. I'm just saying, be aware of that. Everything is genetic. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people think that they have a lot more free will than they actually do. And that's okay. That's a good way to live. I think that's a positive way to live. But just don't fool yourself into thinking that you're not just also kind of a really complicated machine in a lot of ways. And the components of that machine are courtesy of your parents. And so, like I said, when you find yourself turning into your parents or exhibiting a lot of the behaviors or or whatever, there's some wiggle room on that, and you do have free will, but you're kind of still working within the constraints of the biology that your parents gave you. And again, I'm not saying that all Jews are bad or anything like that, or that if you shouldn't have, or even that you shouldn't have kids with a Jew if that's what you want to do. I'm saying that just don't fool yourself into thinking that, okay, perfect example, right, of what I'm getting at. So hopefully this will clarify it. E. Michael Jones seems to think that if you're Catholic, that magically your IQ goes up. Like when he talks about Africa, for example, failing as a nation, he does not think that the race has anything to do with it. He thinks that's 100% because they're not Catholic. And he'll even say things like about how his German ancestors were chasing pigs in the forest or whatever like that until they became Catholic, and then magically they got smart. And he was once challenged about this on a show where I forget who said this, but someone said, like, well, then how do you explain Japan? They're not Catholic. In fact, there's fewer Christians per capita in Japan than these African countries that you're talking about. Why would Japan not have the same sorts of problems if the problem is rooted in the fact that these Africans just haven't found Jesus yet? And he didn't have, he was honest. He's a good guy, right? So he was honest. He said, I don't have an answer for that. All right, well, I do have an answer for that. And the answer for that is genetics. And so just be mindful of that. And it's not just in terms of, Jews or whatever. I'm just saying it plays a role, and too many people pretend that it doesn't. I got into an argument, we're talking about farmers and stuff. I got into an argument with some libertarian farmer who really fucking kind of pissed me off because he was hiring illegal immigrants to work on his farm. And I was saying, yeah, like no offense, dude, I don't want to cause beef, especially in, it's a small town or whatever, but I think that's un-American. And I don't think that you should be doing that for a variety of reasons. And we were talking about it, and he brought up the race thing. Like he tried to he's like, what, are you racist or whatever? These people are good people. They're blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, let's talk about the race thing. If they're interchangeable with Americans, if you can get Mexicans that cross the border and they're exactly the same as Americans, and it's all about environment, and like you're saying, why is it that you care about the genetics of your cow? Because he had a dairy farm, and I said, do you use cows that are genetically bred for dairy? He's like, yeah. And I was like, but why? The genetics shouldn't matter. We're all the same, right? You should be able to get any cow and stick them in your farm. Like, you shouldn't worry about pedigree at all. But you worry a lot. And you pay a lot of money for those genetics. I know that. And he got really fucking pissed off because he knew I was right. It's like, it's amazing to me that people would think that genetics would matter so fucking much everywhere else in the universe, except for when it came to humans. Then magically, it doesn't matter. We're immune. Somehow genetics don't affect the human brain. It affects everything else in the universe except the human brain. And look, a lot of behavior is genetic. You can look at, it's not just environment. A lot of it's environment too, but I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with twin studies where they have adopted children, studies on adopted children where they don't even meet their parents. Like, there's no way they're picking up these behaviors from being around their parents. They've never even met their biological parents, and they develop a lot of the same behaviors as their biological parents. Because if you think about it this way, the genetics is like the car, and then your soul, or whatever you want to call it, is the person driving. But the car isn't going to change based on who's driving it. You can drive it differently, One driver might drive it faster. One driver might drive it slower. One driver might be better at taking fast corners in that car. But at the end of the day, you're still limited by what that car can do. That car is the biology. You know, in the same way, humans are limited by the biology of your mind and the engineering of that. In the same way that, you know, if you drive a car, it doesn't matter who drives it. So anyway, my internet's dropping out, looks like. I'm going to wrap things up here and get my day started. Make sure you watch Millennial, and make sure you watch The Raging Humanist on Saturday. I forget the name of whatever he's doing there. And like I said, in terms of I hope that clarified it. I'm not saying don't marry a Jew or anything like that. I'm just saying it'd be the same if someone asked me, should I marry this black girl? You know, I'd say, and she's Christian. I'd be like, okay, well, I mean, just be aware. Just be aware of what that would mean biologically for your children. Excuse me. And you might be okay with that. All right. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just saying, make an informed decision. And don't just assume that if your black girlfriend is Catholic, that she's going to be have the same genetics as a Catholic white girl or East Asian girl or something like that. So anyway, with that, I'm going to wrap things up, and hope to see you guys on the Millennial stream and on the Raging Humanist this Saturday. And I'll probably do another. I'm trying to do this thing like 5 days a week, but it's going to take some time to warm up to doing that and getting better at just streaming. But for Black Pilled, I am Devin Stack.
Dun, dun, dun.